Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Listen, man, stop making excuses for Errol Spence, because Errol Spence isn't a man who's making excuses for himself. Ever since he lost that fight to Terrence Crawford, the only thing he said is Terrence Crawford was the better man. The only thing he mentioned is if they have the rematch, he'd prefer the rematch takes place at 154. That's it. He didn't say anything like, I refuse to fight a rematch at 147. He didn't say anything like, I was weight drained. There's no way in the world Crawford should have beat me. The only reason I lost is because I fought at 147. I had to lose too much weight. I wasn't eating the last 3-4 days before the fight. He didn't make any excuses. He didn't say anything about no damn car accident. He didn't say anything about no damn, like these bozos out here, about his strength and conditioning coach, about his dietitian, about no pharmaceutical genius, nothing about a car accident, about the eye injury, about the inactivity. He didn't say anything. But if you let the Errol Spence fans come out here, that's what they're throwing out. And to that, I gotta say, hold your horses and stop taking it to the stupid. If Errol Spence is remaining reticent on the issue, then I think it's only right that we do the same and wait to see what he has to say when the press conferences start for the rematch. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, I've said it in other videos, I'll say it again. I'm not so sure the rematch happens before March. I think Crawford's going to end up in a position where he ends up taking an interim fight, but it's kind of complicated because of the sanctioning bodies and they all have to agree. Right? I've talked about it in other videos. I'm not going to do that here. But when you look at the people who are close to Errol Spence, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you this, right? I pasted those images of Errol Spence on this slide on purpose. I didn't paste them in there to humiliate Errol Spence. I pasted them in there so you can look at his face. Okay? When he, in that picture in the middle, that's Errol Spence walking to the ring. Look at the bags under his eyes. Look at his forehead. Look at his face. That looks like somebody who is like a zombie. Now, you know, when I did my videos, I didn't make no excuses. I praised Terrence Crawford, but I did say, and I do believe that with him coming to the ring, it just didn't seem right. But at the end of the day, and this is what people need to understand, in that first round, Errol Spence, what does he say? He comes out and he's stepping, right? Errol Spence came out stepping. He came out firing. Okay? So if he would have came out in the first second of the first round fighting the way he looked entering the ring, well then I would agree 100% something's wrong here. But in that first round, he came out stepping and he won the first round. And he touched up Crawford a little bit, but Crawford started to connect and counter. So you could see in the first round, like, okay, if Crawford's gonna let his hands go, Errol Spence gonna be in trouble. Now, when the second round came, we know Errol Spence was still giving Crawford the business till he got bing-binged. And then that was it. Spence he didn't really know, he was lost. He was in there getting tore out the frame. And when you watch his face, even look at the picture to the far right, that's him in the middle of the fight, getting touched up by Crawford. And he just naturally has that look like, he's got narcolepsy, you know what I'm saying? The man just looked like he falling asleep all the time. So the fact that he was getting bing-binged and the swelling and the bleeding and the cuts and all that, it just gave his overall appearance an even more, I would say, like, a more kind of disfigured appearance, disfigured look on his face. But his expressions, in my opinion, I would think they just look a bit more exaggerated because he naturally has this expression on his face like he's in the clouds. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. He just naturally has a very relaxed expression. That's just how his facial features are. But nonetheless, he hasn't made an excuse. I don't foresee Errol Spence making an excuse. I do think when Errol Spence and Crawford finally get in the ring for the rematch, I am 100% confident if Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, that rematch comes off, which I think it will. I just don't think it's going to be anytime soon. If Errol Spence beats, my hair getting long, I need to cut this shit, right? If Errol Spence beats Terrence Crawford, that's when you're going to hear Errol Spence talk about if it was weight that bothered him in the first fight, if it was inactivity, if it was the car accidents, if it was, stress in his personal life, you're going to hear him talk about all of that. But if he loses again, I don't think you'll hear that. If he does talk about it, I think it'll be some years down the road where they're having to sit down with him and they're reflecting on his sequel with Terrence Crawford. And when they do a deep dive into it, and I think at that point he'll be comfortable kind of talking about, okay, well, these are some of the challenges I experienced. These are some of the impediments I wasn't able to get beyond. And as a result, I poorly performed in the first fight. Second fight, we were able to square away some of those challenges and those open-ended issues. However, it just proved that Terrence Crawford was the better man. But until then, I don't think you're going to get that conversation from Errol Spence. So for me, I love having a conversation. I'll never tell anyone, I'll tell you, don't take it this stupid. But I'm not going to sit here and try to discourage somebody from having a discussion. But I think it's important for both parties, or however many parties involved in a conversation, to be able to relax, have patience, and listen. So I say that to say this. When I hear a lot of these people in the comments and I see stuff on Twitter, and I don't really watch a lot of other content creator stuff, I'm trying to be honest. Every now and then I catch something from the Boxing Voice, but I don't stay on there long because I don't have patience. You know what I'm saying? I'm a retired military dude, man. I don't have patience. I got patience with my kids, but to watch some of these videos these guys make, I can't take all the cussing and shouting and all that and N-word and MFer and the people calling in inappropriate language. I can't handle that. I'm being honest with you. That shit messes with me. I'll just leave it as that. It does something to me. I can't take that. So it's hard for me, one, to sit down and listen to people making a bunch of excuses about a man who has not made an excuse. But it's hard for me to sit down and listen to a bunch of adults who choose to represent themselves poorly. Now again, I try not to judge them. I'm just telling you, I just don't have the patience and tolerance for that. But anyone who wants to sit there and have a conversation, we can disagree, we can laugh and all that. No, I don't think I know everything. I'll sit here and listen to talk all day, but once it starts getting the conversation turns destructive opposed to constructive, I don't got time for that. You know what I'm saying? So that being said, when Errol Spence is out here, quiet, vacationing, man's on holiday, right? Chilling. Everyone else is talking about what Errol Spence has going on, what Errol Spence went through, what he's going through, what he's going to fix. Everybody talking about Errol Spence except for Errol Spence. Errol Spence out here living his best life. The man just made, I don't know what the rumor is, like 25 to 40 million, something crazy. Because you got to understand, it's not just the pay-per-view. It's not just the live gate. It's not just the ticket sales. You know what I'm saying? It's those additional modes of revenue, sponsorships, endorsements, and other things that these fighters receive. it's a lot more than just the pay-per-view split, okay? Where the provider gets, the distributor gets 10%, the cable network gets 45%, and the remaining 45% gets split between the fighter and their promoter. You know what I'm saying? That's not how this works. So Errol Spence got paid. But let me tell you something. He is out here getting healthy. I think he's doing some training. I don't know how intense it is. But my concern is, and this is my concern for Terrence Crawford too, but more for Errol Spence. If there's going to be any excuse, I think the excuse will derive from the fight date getting pushed out until I think April, May. I don't think Crawford and Spence are gonna fight February, March. I don't think so. The reason I say that is because, listen, Errol Spence, I'm not sure about his discipline when it comes to food. Just being honest with you. Some of the images that I've seen of Errol Spence, and again, it's just a photo. You know, it's hard to go off of a photo because depending on how you take it, the lighting, everything, it can make someone look very handsome, make a woman look very beautiful, or it can make a person look unattractive. It can make a person look fat, or it can make a person look in really good shape, depending on just the angles, right? So I don't trust those images. But what I can go off of, historically, Errol Spence has struggled with weight gain in between fights. And he seems to be out here just enjoying the fruits of his labor and chilling with his girl and his family. And my concern would be going through Thanksgiving, Errol Spence gaining some weight, and going through Christmas, Errol Spence gaining some weight. I just think the time of the year is just horrible for Errol Spence to try to discipline himself and to not eat. I'm telling you right now, it takes a special human being, especially when, like Errol Spence, his mom's American, dad's Jamaican. So he comes from a West Indian background. Like myself, I'm not Jamaican, but I can tell you one thing about West Indian people and also, American people. When it comes to the holiday time, food is serious business. So it's hard to be somewhere when they're cooking, man, and you smelling that shit, you know what I'm saying? It takes a different type of discipline. The only individuals that I've met who have the discipline to not react or to succumb to the aromatics that are in the air when people are in there cooking, or people who bodybuild. I used to do a lot of, I've done everything, man. But I ain't here to talk about me, but I box, weight train, I've done everything. And I got to a point, right? And my friends too, and I know guys to this day, you get to a point to where you're like, you don't eat for flavor, right? You eat for a result. And it got to a point with me at one time, it didn't matter what was being cooked. And I know I could cook all kind of shit. I cook everything. Straight Trinidad and Tobago food, boom. I could cook everything, man. Curry, roti, everything. Stewed chicken, pilau, everything. Cuckoo, callaloo, everything. Fish, everything. Fried stew, fish and coconut milk. Whatever, I could cook it all. I just grew up around it, and you just learn it, you know what I'm saying? I cook it for my sons. Now my sons eat all that. But what I'm getting at is, those guys who bodybuild, they eat for a result. So I've been in situations, especially, I remember I'm retired military, so especially when I was single up till I was 33. So we'd be at potlucks and different things, and we'd be up in there chilling. And I'd have a little Tupperware dish with my little chicken and vegetables, and everybody in there getting busy. Whether it's a potluck, a holiday, dinner, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and we'd be in there, and we may take some turkey, may look to see some vegetables, but nobody was in there going all out because there's a type of discipline, and people would be like, I don't see how y'all do that. But we get the results because you see it in our physiques, our bodies would change. And having to cut weight for fights, I used to cut from 200 pounds to 160. And it wasn't a problem. Tuna fish, man, tuna fish sandwiches, tuna fish and lettuce. And I was running, and I'd go run, boy, it was hot too, boy. I'd be running like maybe 7, 9 miles. You know what I'm saying? In the morning, be at work, get off, go train, then go run at night. And I didn't even run for time. I just run for distance. Yeah, I used to be, I'd be running to landmarks. I'd start off here. I'd be like, I gotta get to that spot. Once I get there, I'd be like, boom, I gotta get to that spot. Then I've been running 45 minutes. Let me turn around. And then I would just come back. And if I say, hey, let me go up here, then I would just be out. Sometimes I used to run for an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? And that's no exaggeration. I'm telling you the truth. But I enjoyed it. But what I'm getting at is having the discipline to not indulge. So I think if the fight with Crawford and Spence was to take place, I think you're looking at realistically like, April, May, man. Because after the holidays, Errol Spence is going to need about 4 months, 5 months to if he doesn't have the discipline now, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt to say, hey, he doesn't want to go through no more BS with having to cut down from. You heard all kind of rumors. Errol Spence weighed 190, he weighed 225, he weighed 250. Look, one thing is we know he had to cut some weight. How much? Don't know, right? If you ask me, I'll say 250, 275 because it gets your attention, although I know it's not true. But I put it out there to get your attention. But bottom line is he doesn't want to go through that again. So I think he'll have to take some time to really be careful with the weight cut, getting down to 154 safely, feeling comfortable, making sure his body is healthy, his body's rested. And when he comes into the fight with Terrence Crawford, one thing I know 100%, and Errol Spence more than anyone else, he wants to enter that fight 100%. He does not want to enter that fight and make any excuses, right? I believe that 100%. And that's why Errol Spence, although he's not the A side, he's going to try to get this fight agreed to kind of around the things that he feels is going to make him the most comfortable and posture him for the best chance of clipping Terrence Crawford. But outside of that, I just don't think you will ever hear Errol Spence make an excuse about his loss unless he beats Terrence Crawford in a rematch, or if he loses, it'll be years down the road when they sit him down to do a deep dive and re-examine the Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence fights 1 and 2. And I think that's when they'll be able to dig in and he'll be more comfortable saying, you know what, I've never said this, but hey, this is kind of what was going on in that first fight. And Terrence Crawford was an amazing fighter, but these are some things that plagued me. No one knew about, but now you know. But no excuse. He beat me fair and square. The rematch, and then he'll go into that. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I see it. But I like Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence is an amazing fighter. I just think no matter what weight he and Terrence Crawford fight at, I think Errol Spence I think he's just at a disadvantage. Errol Spence is elite. Crawford's more elite. Okay? In addition to that, and I gotta be real, I think Errol Spence is at a severe disadvantage because Terrence Crawford has a pharmaceutical genius in his corner. Now, remember, when I say that, that's not a bad thing because a lot of guys have pharmaceutical geniuses. There are 4 pharmaceutical geniuses that are very well known. The other ones are qualified but unknown. So a lot of guys who are using pharmaceutical geniuses to help them achieve the same results that these fighters who hire Usman Sajjad, Alex Ariza, Victor Conti, and Mimo Heredia, right? Everyone wants the same results. But with Errol Spence, I know he's done a lot of stuff on his own. He seemed to have hired a dietitian, a nutritionist, but Errol Spence seems to be a little stubborn and not really wanting to venture out and bring on board a guy like a Heredia, a guy like a Conti, a guy like a Usman Sajjad, a guy like Alex Ariza. He seems to be someone who would rather just kind of do things his way. And I'm gonna tell you right now, when you got a guy like Crawford, who just seems to be able to do everything better than you, and he has a pharmaceutical genius on his team to help with his recovery, with his durability, with his punch resistance, with his stamina, with his power. It's kind of hard to see Errol Spence beating him. Okay, and that's why, not getting into talking about another fight. That's what makes the David Benavidez Demetrius Andre fight so interesting, because you got guys who are highly skilled, and they both have pharmaceutical geniuses in their corners, and that fight is going to be very evenly matched straight down the line. It's just going to be who can get in there and find a way to win. And if they're not finding a way to win, who can make the assessments to make the adjustments to come back in the round where they had maybe lost, and now come back the next round and find a way to win and get the upper hand and maybe get a knockout or get a decision. But bottom line is, I think it's going to be some ebbs and flows in Benavidez and Andre. And I think Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, if Errol Spence picks up a pharmaceutical genius, I think there will be ebbs and flows in the fight, and then we may be shocked to see that this fight be a lot more competitive than the first fight, because one, it's at 154, okay? Two, they have a pharmaceutical genius as well. So if in fact Conti made a difference in the fight, which we don't know that, right? But I would have to say maybe he did make somewhat of a difference. If in fact Conti made a difference in that fight by being in Bud's corner, if Errol Spence has a Conti equivalent, then it should make an impact in the fight and the Errol Spence performance as well. That being said, stop making excuses for a man who isn't making excuses. Because Errol Spence is straight up built Ford tough, man. He ain't a Hyundai. He ain't a Kia. This man is straight up built Ford tough. And he out here finding ways to win by not making excuses. Let's see if he can find a way to win in the rematch. I don't know. We got to wait and see. Y'all keep cool. Breeze.